Dope ass dude podcast. Transparent conversation. Real life stories. Hustling grind, transparent conversation. Real life stories. Hustling grind.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be back with you guys on tonight. I see we already have Keita in the chat, and we have Pat in the chat, and I saw Charlotte. She beat everybody into the chat today, even myself. She was here before me. But what's going on, everybody? Happy to have you out tonight, and tonight is going to be a really, really good show. My guest, I'm really excited about him. Share nuggets of wisdom with you all on just everyday tips on how to live your best life. So I'm really excited to have him on. And you guys already know the preliminary things. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you don't mind going ahead, subscribing to the YouTube channel. And while you're there, click on notification so that you can be notified each and every time a podcast is uploaded to the site. And then click on like so that this can be shared with others just like you. And if you're unable to catch the podcast on Mondays, you can always catch it on the go. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Again, that's Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And then you can watch the podcast live each Monday on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. Again, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. You can catch it live each and every Monday at 7 p.m. And then if you are not following me on Instagram and TikTok, if you don't mind going ahead and following me on both of those platforms, I can be found at the Dope Ass Dude Podcast on both Instagram and TikTok. And we'll get Andrew information out of the way as well. Andrew, and this is one person you definitely want to go out and follow. I mean, Andrew, his name on social media is the Quiet Swagger. And I mean, this brother, he does have a lot of swag. He has a lot of tips on fashion, but in no way is he quiet because his message is loud and resounding for everyone to hear. So I'm really excited about him. But you can follow him on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Quiet Swagger. So again, on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, you can follow him at the Quiet Swagger. So I came across Andrew on Threads. That's where I initially started following Andrew and was exposed to everything that he's doing and was able to watch him in real time on how he is making a change in the world. And this guy, some of the stuff he says is the way he narrates it or creates it or however you want to describe it. I don't even know the word for it. It is so unique, and he takes and give you such a unique perspective. Like he did something on I don't even want to talk about that because we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but it was talking about zest. And if you're a cook, when you use your I guess it's a grinder, whatever you use, lemon zest, even though it's a small little amount that you put in it, it makes such an enormous impact. But he used that as a metaphor in his story, and it was just so powerful. So Andrew, he is married, and he is, like I said, he's up north and he's doing his thing, and I don't want to say too much about him. I'm gonna let him tell his own story, and we're gonna bring him out. I see you out there. Andrew, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Are we good?
Okay, we good. Yeah.
All right. Technical difficulties. All right, all right.
And
Okay.
that is so weird because we were just talking.
We
We
were
did
talking. Everything was perfect, and I was like,
everything was perfect. Everything was
"All
perfect.
right, all right, we're back."
But man, it happened. So Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm a 46-year-old man. I married for 14 years. Um, Worked in corporate for, still working in corporate for 24 years, and kind of went through, if you will, the mature midlife crisis, where you sit there and you look at your life and you said, "All right, the sports car is not going to do it. You know, the fun life is past me, right?" So you sit there and you go, "What do I want to build for the second chapter of my life?" Right? I spent the last 20 years doing something that a young man had to pick. In high school, you college, you just go and then you go, "Okay, well, I guess I'll just do business." And then you pop your head up halfway through and you said, I don't know if I have a second half in me, right? I don't know if I can just continue down this because it's not fulfilling me in any kind of form. So I had to rediscover myself, right? You had to kind of peel back all the layers of being performative for a corporation and that kind of formulaic process of life. And I had to rediscover new talent in myself, the stuff that I used to love, the mature me, things of that nature. Who have I become over these years? You have to do a lot of self-reflection. And then I started writing and started posting on social media and did things that I never thought I would ever do. And so that's just a little bit about myself, about where we are right now.
So was that scary for you to like the last 20 years? Was that scary for you to switch up from what you had to do the first 26 years of your life? Was that scary?
extremely, extremely scary because you build a life of somewhat financial comfort, right? So you build this world for yourself, and blowing it up is financially risky. It's emotionally risky. You have to bet on yourself for the first time as an adult, and my back isn't quote unquote up against the wall where, and I if you get fired or something happens to you, sometimes it's external that you go, well, I don't have another choice. This was a conscious choice, which sometimes makes it more scary because you have to put yourself out there, where you go, I could lose everything that I've actually worked really, really hard for, by putting yourself out there. But you go, the upside has to be greater. And I think that's the part where you pave a way for yourself, and you get off the path. So I kind of had this like analogy of like, you enter like a forest, there's a pathway, right? And then everybody walks their path. And then all of a sudden you got to get off that path. You got to kind of take out a machete and just start cutting through, and then you carve your own. And it's very scary to do that because you don't know where you're going, but you know that something in your heart tells you just keep cutting away and keep striving towards what's going to be beautiful for you.
So when you did make that change, were there ever times that you questioned whether or not you made the right decision?
All the time. I didn't have like a large following. You start writing, and I work in corporate finance just for some background. So then to start to write was not something. It wasn't like, oh, I went to school for literature or something of that nature. No, I went to school for literally finance. So writing wasn't something that I thought was going to come naturally to me, but it did. And I think that was the interesting part, which is you just start to you doubt yourself halfway as you're writing. You doubt yourself every day that you post. You doubt yourself when you get 50 views or something like that. You go, what am I doing? You literally kind of pause. You go, why? I don't need to do this. Like, and then you kind of sit there and look at the recipe, and you go, people who quit fail. Everybody else who doesn't quit somehow figures out a way to succeed. So you got to look yourself in the mirror and go, I'm not a quitter, and in order for me to achieve, you have to do this when you don't see progress. And a 2-second backstory, which was, I see you're in pretty good shape. I'm in pretty decent shape. When you first go to the gym, you're not going to see progress, right? You bench press, you eat a little, change your diet. You're not going to see it, but over time it compounds. So I had to keep telling myself, like, just because you don't see the work doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's happening. You just got to keep going. You can't quit, so.
Yeah, so let me ask, so another question on that. So when you did make that change, and of course it was a scary moment in your life, what were the people around you saying?
Well, luckily, I do have the support of a great wife. My wife, we kind of looked at each other and we said we're going to do it together, right? So I would say that's probably, she's my rock, and that's probably like the biggest part of my emotional support. And the other thing I would tell you is I didn't tell a lot of people, because a lot of people don't like, the disruption of the system. And they're going to give you negative information. And part of being a mature person is actually understanding the fact that when you talk to people, their fear will leak into the conversation and then they'll project it onto you. So I kind of just anchored on the fact that I had my wife's support. I believed in myself, and I still haven't told my father anything, and still haven't, some of my friends or whatever, but I made myself a little bit more anonymous, and I just kind of put my head down and said I have to do it. So yeah, I stick with the privacy kind of aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think that's somewhere where some of us we tend to go wrong is when we start making these type of decisions, we start getting telling others for their buy-in into what
Yeah,
we're doing.
yeah,
And if they because they're not a lot of times people mean well because they're trying to protect us.
yeah.
So they will give you advice. And most times that advice is to keep the job that's paying your bills. You don't want to struggle. You don't want to do this and you don't want to do that. Most times it's never, oh, go for it. You got this. You
No,
got this.
no. And one of the aspects of that I always kind of, as you want to change your life, you got to start researching things, right? And people will tell you, don't take advice from people that are not where you want to be, right? So I haven't built the circle for the people that are where I want to be, but I know where my friends and family are, and I know the role that they took. So I go, well, if I ask you advice, you're going to tell me to stay in the same place because you're doing it. You did it, right? You stayed where I am now. So then it's illogical for them to tell me something that they couldn't possibly know, right? So like we, give the fitness, analogy. You want advice from somebody who has that body that you want, right? Somebody's in shape, tells you about the hard times, tells you about what to do on the cheat meal or the workout or change little things, right? So you want to get advice from mentors of people that have actually lived it, because then they're going to tell you, oh no, yeah, it's just going to be hard right now. So that is expected versus, yeah, your friends and your family, sometimes they don't have that experience.
Yeah, they don't have that experience. And I love how you said quitting is failing because a lot of times like people don't even start, they
Yeah,
just automatically assume that, oh, it's not gonna work, and you haven't even tried it to know if it's gonna work or not.
exactly.
Because and I'm at a point now, in my life where I rather start something, see that it's not working, and pivot opposed
Yes.
to not starting and never knowing whether or not
No.
it's going to do it.
No, and you learn so much once you start, right? You go, okay, is this something I can sustain, right? And then does it spark something new, or do you go, you know what? I got a few early wins, and that gives me momentum, so I'm going to keep going, whatever the situation is. Truly not starting an analysis paralysis, right? And I was somebody who played with that for so many years, where I had to see the path laid before me before I could walk it, right? I had to see everything mapped out. I was kind of that perfectionist, if you will. So then you go, that didn't lead me to the life that I want. So then you go, no, 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 no. You kind of got to jump in and figure it out as you go, and that's winning, right? At least you could say, I say this all the time. At least you could say, I tried. I absolutely tried, and that's a win.
Yeah, I have a couple of nieces that they just recently graduated. Actually, two of them, both of them just graduated with their masters,
Good.
and they are wanting to go into these careers that just not normal. One of them wants to be, she's a athlete, so she wants to be like a trainer. Well, not a trainer, but a coach with a college football team. I mean,
Okay.
basketball
Okay.
team. And so she's struggling finding a job here in the area and or finding a job period. And so many times she started working because she graduated last year. She started working, but I always remind her, don't get comfortable. Don't
Yes.
get comfortable in this job, because if you get comfortable, then you're gonna stay in it and never pursue your dreams. And I tell them,
Yes.
keep that, but they don't listen to me, man. They don't listen
I
to
got
me.
a I got a nephew, and he dropped out, and Every once in a while, I try to, throw him a few bucks because he's trying to figure out his way. And to your point, that is probably the scariest part because I go, once I started, I couldn't get out, So I go, if he didn't even start yet, I said, you know what? Every month, let me throw him a few bucks and see if he can figure it out on his own, because once you get that job and everything of that nature, that money comes in, you get the car payment. Next thing you know, you get the nice apartment, and that's it. You're trapped, somewhat. So
Yeah, you're trapped. So, okay, so let's get to it because I kind of know what this is, but I
yeah,
want you to really explain it. So, this tends to be like your hashtag, your closing statement, opening statement,
yeah,
pay yourself first. Like, tell us about that.
yes. This is what kind of changed my life. Pay yourself first. It started obviously. So give everybody the 2-second backstory. Pay yourself first is a financial acronym. Essentially, any type of business owner, you need to pay yourself first, because if you're struggling, then that will resonate out for the business, right? So you pay yourself first, and then what I took it as was very literal. So I wanted to get in better shape. I would pack my gym bag, and I said, okay, I'm going to go to the gym after work. And then I got tired, or I had to work late, or something happened, and then I didn't go. And then next thing you know, I go, okay, I got to go in the morning. And then I realized I was rejuvenated. I set time in the morning. And then everything that I started to do was kind of an extension of that, which is the corporate world takes a lot of your time away because it takes 8+ hours realistically every single day. So when you want to really grow, you really got to put time in to make sure that you pay yourself first. So what I say is that even if you journal in the morning, go for a walk in the morning, go to the gym in the morning, anything that you do that's healthy for the mind and body, and the spirit, pray, anything that you believe in, then you got to do that first. Don't put it off till later, because if you do, then that means you're paying. If you do, for the folks that work for a company, then you're giving your company your best energy before you pour it into yourself at all. And then what's left is the scraps. And then you get left with the scraps. And then you start complaining that your life isn't going the direction that you want it to go in. And you're the one who put yourself second. So, a lot of the corporate culture is all about trying to take as much time from you. And I realized that you have to pay yourself first. And that's really the message that I wanted to start every morning with. Even if it never leaves, I said, okay, I'm going to post something positive for the world to see first thing in the morning. I wake up early, I get to the gym, I do my thing, and I give out a positive message out to the world.
I love that. I love that because, and you're so right. When you don't pay yourself first, by the time it gets to you, either you're completely depleted
Yes.
and you have nothing to give to yourself, or you're giving yourself the bare minimum. So when you started this process, was it something that you had to eventually make into a habit? Because in the book Atomic Habit, how it talks about you do it one, and you keep repeating it, and it becomes just a part of your daily routine.
Yeah.
Or are you one of those people you say I'm gonna do it and then you just do it?
I'm one of those people that I say I'm thinking about doing it, that I probably spend like a gap not doing it, and then once I start to do it, I go, all right, well, you showed up, you don't quit, so that I kind of keep going. And then when one of your first questions, like, you ever think about quitting? There's certain mornings I'm like, does it matter? I'm like, yes, it does. You're never gonna get it if you quit. So yeah, no, you got to keep going. So yeah, that is my kind of tenacious. Once the ball's rolling, then I go, okay, I got it. Keep going.
So what are some suggestions you have that people like, pep talks or things that they can say to get them on that track of paying themselves first?
I would say definitely some form of self-love. I think it's very important. We put a lot of validation in the world, even if you have a significant other or whatever the situation is. You gotta actually believe in yourself. And I realized that I never said the words like, "I am special, I am light, I am loved, I'm abundant," and I would write these words down first thing in the morning, and just kind of just a little notepad. And I realized that I don't say those words to myself. And then I also started studying like manifesting, probably a lot of folks do that or whatever. And you realize that the words "I am" are so powerful. So I would definitely promote, say something positive to yourself, even if you just sit up in your bed and just quietly just say to yourself, like, I am great. Today is going to be an amazing day for me. Like it seems like kind of awkward in the beginning, and then eventually you start to realize it actually changes your viewpoint of the world because you're the one promoting yourself, and then it's just really just self love. So I would definitely start with anybody right there because it's so easy. It's a few lines, it's a few words in your head. Say it out loud. Just quiet in the bathroom. Look in the mirror. Say it. It only takes a couple of minutes, and I would absolutely advise anybody for that.
Yeah, and so in one of your videos that I saw on your page, it was talking about the light versus the dark, and you was talking about how, it was just, I guess just everything was hidden. It was light, and then it would be dark. But you also said evil can't win, and you
Yeah.
talked about how the light. So and you talked about thinking. I mean, not focusing on the negativity, but sometimes we do that when we're trying to develop new habits in our life. How do we counter those negative thoughts?
Yeah, and I kind of think I said it. So you bring up a good one. So I think I said light doesn't ask permission to remove the darkness or something like that. It just kind of it the light appears and the darkness dissipates, right? Those were some of the words, and I think that's really what I kind of felt so hard, which was, the darkness is always going to come and it's always going to creep in, but then when you just shine bright back, it just goes away. And I realized I would create a negative thought pattern, right? So you go, okay, this isn't working, I'm disparaging, right? You say something negative, and then all of a sudden I go, stop. You're doing great. Like it's not going to show up every second. You're doing very well. You're on the right path. It's kind of up and down, and that's okay. Like if you're on a slight down for the second, you will be going back up again, and then you just kind of watch it dissipate, if you will, right? Like you just shine the bright, the darkness just is gone, and then you are that. So that was like the analogy of, if you dwell and focus and look at the darkness, then that is exactly what you're going to see the whole time. And when you realize that you are the light, and then you shine it, then you realize you just remove the darkness. And I know it's a metaphor, but it is really how you kind of control your thoughts, if you will. So, you to not spiral and spin. At least I'm projecting out because that's something I do. But yeah, I'm sure it's pretty common out there.
I love that though. You are the light. And I think that's the thing with the that's why affirmations and the whole I am thing
Yeah.
is so important, because there are going to be moments in life when we don't feel like we are the one. We don't feel like we are the light. We feel overcome by everything that's going on in our everyday life, that we're not shining. We've dimmed ourselves. So
Yeah, and yeah, sorry.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. No, Andrew, go ahead.
No, and that's really it. And then you realize that you create your world, right? Like it's really just your world. And I think a lot of us put, well, I'll speak for myself. I put a lot of stock in other people, right? Like you said, well, somebody must do something. Somebody more powerful is going to come around. I hope somebody else changes. And I think there was a lot of things happening from a political standpoint, from certain things happening in this world that became disparaging. And I go, I can create my own world. Like if I'm just going to consume and then take in, then I am going to consume whatever they're producing. If I'm the one generating, then I'm going to then see that life is better because I am generating better. So if you find a way that you can see what you're generating is positive, like I say, something like writing or talking or showing up on social media, it's scary, but it is still looking in the mirror. I always say this, like, you look at the phone is staring back. It's just you staring back at the phone, right? It's just your face. You don't get to see the people that it's going to eventually go to. So it's just you telling yourself, like, I'm going to make it in this world. I'm going to be great. And like, that's it.
Yeah. So let's stay right there, because I mean, you said
Yeah.
something that just really, I mean, I love when you said it. You're the one, you said you can create your own world. You're the one that's generating. A lot of people do not believe that,
I
Andrew.
know.
They believe,
I
yeah,
didn't believe
I
it either,
believe
too.
that.
I believe it now. I
I
believe it.
believe it
Yes.
now, yeah, but it's like people think like we have to live with what is given to us. We
Yes.
have to play the card, the hand of cards that's dealt to us. People do not understand the power that they have on the inside, or the power that, yeah, that they can create. Like So how did you get there? Let's talk about that. How did you get there?
I think you said a phrase that I think so many of us have heard from some elder. That's the hand I was dealt, right? Like that is a phrase that has been said by everybody. And I think there's a lot of negative connotation that sometimes our parents, they're just human beings, but they said certain things, right, towards us, to us, and we absorbed it as fact, right? And I started to look at my parents as human beings, right? I got into my 40s and I realized how hard life is, and I realized how much by the time my father was old enough that I remember him being around my age, I go, wow, life is really hard. I go, he was just frustrated. And I go, so the words that came out of his mouth weren't words to live by. They were just words out of his frustration. So then I just kind of stopped saying those things. I go, I don't have to say I was dealt a bad hand. I don't have to feel sorry for myself. I don't have to look and go, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't have to wear that like a badge. That is not me. That is something else that it is. And what I came to the conclusion was, people say this all the time, and it really resonated with me in over the last few years, which are words or spells, and whatever you keep repeating over and over again is the world that you're going to see and the world that you're going to live in. So if you say those negative things and the downtrodden kind of energy that sometimes we absorbed, then it's going to be the actual life that you live. So when it goes back to my point of, well, you create your world. If you say that it's negative, then it is. If you say that it's positive, eventually it will start to turn positive, and then you're just seeing, if you will, like the sunny side of the street. Now all of a sudden you're looking out, you're like, oh, it is beautiful out. You take note, it's raining outside. You go, oh, well, the rain's really pretty, actually. We need that rain, become that kind of person. And that's it. It's really that simple, So
I love that. I love that. And then I just think that I know, like, sometimes when I say things, or in the past when I said things, I've learned that it's a process. Just because you say or you think, oh, well, this is going to be this way, it doesn't happen immediately all the time. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes weeks, a year, or whatever. But along the way, you will begin to see little nuggets where it is beginning to manifest. And I think a lot of times we want it to manifest, or the universe to respond immediately, and we see it instantly. And it doesn't work that way. And we get discouraged when it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think you hit a really great point, which is part of that is, first, it's just words, right? First, it's just literally kind of from the brain, right? You just say the words, okay, well, he said, say I am, right? And then eventually, if you keep saying it over and over, then it gets into the body. And then you start to feel it, right? You go, no, I am good. You gotta sit up straight, right? And then once it gets there, that's when I think you start to see it. And I realize that is part of the big part, is that whether you think about it as fake it till you make it or something of that nature, if you keep doing it over and over again, eventually it will just start to show up and you will start to feel it. And then you just go, wow, no, it actually, it is better. And it's like the next thing you know, you realize that, like, life has shifted. I actually didn't realize. I actually didn't even notice that anymore. That's this is just better. Or I wake up better and I just write and I don't even think about it. I don't have to like force it anymore. The pen is flowing and I feel free. And it's like anything else. So, you definitely start off with just obviously physical words, and then eventually it just gets into the body, and then you watch your life change. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, I'm so glad that you said that, man. And I could not move when you said generating. You're the generator and you create the world that you want, because like I said, I say that all the time because I believe it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been a prime example of it. And sometimes you have to be it until you become it. And it's like what you just said, you start making decisions based on who you want to be, not who you are.
Yes.
And then it all comes together. So, I love that. Wow.
Yes. And get great and as you keep going, get more granular with it. Just to keep adding to it. First, it starts off big and broad, and then as you get closer, as you get better, get specific, get very, very specific. I also realize that gets very helpful as well.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so something else you said. You said so many great things in your video, but something else you said in a recent video. You said they don't get the whole of you.
They don't get
When I
the.
heard that, man, I was like, oh, now I looked.
Nah, they only get the zest. They only get the zest of
Oh
you.
my God. Okay, so
And
let's talk about that.
yeah. I wrote like a little piece on this one. This one made me cracking up. So I was laying in my bed one night, and I listen to a second note that I'll say this. And I saw comedy writers do this all the time. Keep a little pen and paper, open up something on your phone, write notes. If you get that little idea, just write it down, right? So I got that idea of like it's just the zest. And it's this concept of literally, I think, a recipe called for a zest of something, right? So then you go, okay, I just take the zest, and then you leave the orange or the lime or whatever it is right there, and then it's fine, right? Like if the fruit is not spoiled, it's completely fine. Eventually, obviously, it can go bad, but and I realize that like sometimes you can't give people all of you because they are not in the capacity to have all of you, right? You are special, you are beautiful, you are magical. And what you give people, you have to be a bit discerning about. And because they can use that back to negative. So I think we were talking in the early days, which is like, who did I talk to? And it's like, yeah, I kind of kept a lot of that to myself because if you're building, right, you are vulnerable. And this is probably the biggest takeaway that I learned, which is you're so raw. You're almost like a snake or something that sheds its skin. You're like the crab or whatever, right? Don't touch me, right? I'm all tender. So then you can't give people all of you in those situations because they'll come and poke and then it's going to hurt and then you're not maybe prepared to handle it. So if you just give people like a little zest of you, just kind of that shave of the rind, it still packs a ton of flavor, right? Because you're special, so you're great. So like they're still going to get the flavor of orange. They're going to taste it, but they don't get the juicy part. They don't get the seeds. They don't get all of that, right? You reserve that for the people that are really, really special in your life, that are really important. So when you walk into rooms, if you're still working, regular corporate job, any type of situation like that, give people what you're willing to let go of while keeping your fruit intact. So that's the cool thing.
Okay. So let me ask you this here. How do you know, like, okay, so because we are taught to give all of us. We're taught that subconsciously. Like, I
Yeah.
love God with my whole heart. I
Yeah.
give my person all of me. We are taught to
Yeah.
give all. So how do you know when to pull back and just give the zest?
I think you named the two, and the rest get the zest. Yes, God gets all of you. Your significant other, you should be pouring into them if it's a healthy relationship. I can't speak to any relationship, but you should be pouring into your significant other, and then everybody else kind of just doesn't get it. And I really mean that and this is the hard part that I'll say. Sometimes it is some of the closest people to you. Sometimes it is certain family members that they're not seeing you. Like, I've always said this sometimes, like I have an older sister. Sometimes she still sees me like a little boy, right? Like I'm 46 and she still sees me like I'm 16 or 10 or something like that. And I go, if she's not seeing me, and I think that's the big key, is that if you know what you are. So if they're not seeing you for what you are, then you can't be giving all of that, right? So if you only meet people with the energy that they are reciprocating. And part of that starts to come with emotional intelligence, right? You walk into that room, you see how somebody's kind of viewing you, right? If they're trying to put you down, if they're trying to put you to the side, then okay, that's all you get from me, right? If somebody really is standing, firm up and they want to know the most of you, then okay, maybe I could give you a little bit more, but you got to be very, you got to watch the room, always reading, always watching.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, someone put discernment in the comments. That's
Yes.
discernment, emotional intelligence, being able to read the room. Yeah, and you do have to know what you need to give everybody or each individual because it's an individual transaction.
Yes.
You give this person this much, you may give this next person more, but like you said, everyone can't handle the whole you. So we have a question for you.
Sure.
So, let's see here. Let me go up. Okay, it's from Wilton. He said the old adage that your friends are a reflection of who you are. How important is it to change your environment in addition to making positive affirmations?
Vital. Fido was the first thing I learned when I actually saw my life change. And I thought about it very literal. The pattern that I had is the life that I have. And then the new life has to come from a new pattern. So it has to derive from small things. So I said this. At first, you start small. I started small. Brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Do different walks. Right. Get your brain associated to change. But then you have to change how your weekend looks. You have to change how your nights look. You have to change how your mornings look. All the work that's not obligated, you have to start to do those different things. And I started to change when I first started writing. I just wrote at home, like in my bed or whatever. And then I went to the city one day with my wife. I live in New Jersey, so we call the city New York City. So I went to New York, and then I sat in a park, and then instead of sitting in like a bar or cafe or something like that to consume, I go, no, just sit down in a park, and I use my phone as like the Wi-Fi, and I just wrote this like Substack. I just wrote this piece. And it was fascinating because then I started looking at the world, literally like New York City busy streets, and they weren't busy anymore. Like I calmed down. I realized that all this action isn't really affecting me, and I just dropped in and started writing. And you have to really change your environment because you don't know who you are. You know who you were, but you don't know who you're going to become until you start to change those environments. So it is one of the things that I always have to remind myself, because you get stuck in patterns, right? Especially when you get older. Just routine, routine, routine. You have to switch it up, and it is where you will see the growth, the biggest.
I love that. And I think a lot of times when we have reached a place that, and it's not so much that the friends that you had were bad or anything like that, but you're in a different place in your life, and maybe their season is just up in your life, and your season is up in their life. But we're taught to be loyal, we're taught to be friends forever, and forever is how long it is supposed to be. Forever is how long it's supposed to be. It's not always forever. And when these people come, and it's time for you to switch over seasons, because if I had to learn the hard way, and I've said this 1,000 times, I was holding on to people, and they were sitting in a chair that no longer belonged to them. It was for the people for the next phase of my life. And you said that also in one of your videos. You was talking about decluttering and cleaning up the space for the new things that are going to come. And sometimes that comes with like releasing people that have served their purpose in your life. Now you just freeing up space for the new people that's supposed to be there.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about friends, a lot of times, literally, you said it, like, you got to be loyal, right? And a lot of us were kind of raised with that mentality, right? Be loyal. But then you also realize that, you made a lot of change. Even if you didn't do any grandiose stuff, you just lived your life. And, maybe as you start to get older, decades have passed, you're still friends with somebody, and, they are where they are. They can't go with you on the next chapter. And not everybody is going to go with you through stages of your life. Just because they popped into your life in high school, just because they popped into your life because they're your cousin or something like that, does not mean that this person has to keep going every step of the way with you. You don't owe anybody anything. You owe yourself something first, right? And if you keep giving away to everybody else because you have to, and you got to go back and always go back, then you're going to stay stagnant, right? Because you're only going to move if they decide to move. And if they don't move, then you don't move. And then why are you falling victim to somebody else's decisions as to what they want in life? They might be happy, and that's great. Like, that's not, if you're feeling something internally, then that's what needs to be respected. Just because they're not feeling that, that's normal, right? Like, they can be bopping along, and they might get to where you're getting later. They may have already got there, and they rejected it. They quit. You don't know their story, right? So just because that face looks the same does not mean that you have to keep, honoring it as if like, you owe this person an allegiance. This is not, Game of Thrones or something like that. This is not, so.
And I think, when we hear that everyone is not going to go the everywhere, I mean, to each level with you, it sounds like negative, but it's not negative. It just means that they don't go to every level with you. They serve their purpose, and now it's time for them to get off the bus. And
It
there's
sounds,
nothing wrong with that.
there's nothing wrong with that, and there's also nothing wrong with giving people the zest too, right? Like, okay, like no, you don't gotta leave my life, but you get less than what you used to get from me. You know, like they may not know the difference, but all I'm giving you is maybe like a little bit of something. I can't give you all of me. I can't spend the whole weekend. I can't do that trip. I can't do that. I don't want to do that anymore. And stupid story. I was talking to somebody, and I was changing my diet, and then we hung out, and then he's like, "Yeah, let's order some wings." You know, I was like, "Oh yeah, order wings, whatever." And it tore my stomach up, and I realized I stopped eating it. You know, and I love them. You know, when they go down, and then you go, "Why did I eat that?" You're like, "Because I was in the old setting, and then I ate it because that's what we always eat. We always go to the bar. We always order some wings." And I'm like, "Why am I don't need to do this anymore. Like, I just feel like ordering some piece of fish. Like, I don't care anymore. You know, like." So, like, you know, you gotta watch those things, you know. So
Yeah, you gotta watch those things. Yeah, and loyalty to your friends should never come at the loss of your dreams or your
no,
future.
no,
It
it's
should
your
never
life.
come at that.
No,
Yes,
it's
your
your
life.
life. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next one, dude. Because I'm telling you, man, I watched all your videos. So it was one other thing in one of your videos. You were talking about get familiar with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you were talking about, or it was a line that you said, and I said I was going to remember it or something like that. And it was something like, we've never lived our goals because we have been stuck in with blinded by distractions. Because you was talking about being distracted and achieving your goals, and you said only way you're going to achieve your goals is you have to get familiar with the uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
what do you think about that?
yeah, I mean, one of the things that you know, you like I said, you know, you're in a routine, you're in the, if you will, the rut because you want to change your life. So you go, okay, I have to get familiar with that feeling of being uncomfortable, right? Because that's the part that stops you from even trying, right? Well, you're like, oh, I don't want to try that because I'm going to get very, like, then I'm going to be a beginner again, right? You work so hard to become advanced at something. You work so hard to become a higher stage. You don't want to become a kid again. You don't want to become a beginner again. And you have to get comfortable with that if you want to try something. So we talk about it. I think we just said it where, you know, when you go to approach a problem, you go, okay, it's another problem, right? And versus, oh no, there's going to be a problem. Like, of course, it's going to be a problem. Like, you've never lived that next chapter that you want to build for yourself. So every step of the way might feel uncomfortable. And sometimes as you start to feel it being uncomfortable, you realize you're like, oh, well, what's going to be the discomfort this time? You know, you got to get to that point that you almost expect it. And then it's not even uncomfortable. It's just going to be like, oh, I'm not going to know what to do. But then I will look it up and I will research it and I will take that next step. And then that's where the confidence comes in of like, I've seen it all before, even though you haven't. You've seen feeling yourself not know what to do and you don't freak out, you know, or the best you can, not freak out, right? So yeah.
So okay, and someone said earlier that they said he makes it seem so easy. I saw that in the comments. Someone
Oh
said
yeah.
that. So like, but because it's not easy to do that, and it is kind of scary to like walk into the unknown. What are some things you can do to, I guess, counter that and not be so afraid of?
I'd say multiple times a week, if not once a day, try to do something different. And it could be really small. And I don't like, sometimes they gloss over these things and don't. Like when I say brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, when I say I go for a walk every morning, I live in like a neighborhood and I normally just walk right. Now I'm walking left. I'm going to take a different way home. I know the usual route. It's easy. I'm going to take a different way home. It'll be fine. You start to do all of these little things, and next thing you know, your brain starts to look for the looks to do something different. That's what I actually realized. I go, ooh, can I do something different? And these things don't cost me anything. They don't. I'm not betting on myself. These are just little tasks. And then when you do the little tasks that are uncomfortable, you know, just switch the glasses. Don't overthink it. Literally, there are so many things that you do a routine that you grow and you grab and you take. You take the same thing over and over again. Just do something different. And when you do that, then you get excited about it eventually because your brain reprograms to say, what can I do a little bit different? And once that starts to settle in, then you start to increase up, right? Like, well, what else could I do different? That might be a little bit riskier. What's something else? And then next thing you know, you realize you're safe. And that's the biggest thing that I think, my wife always says that she goes, oh, I'm safe. Nothing bad happened. Like, everything's fine. Like, nothing broke. And a lot of times that's essentially literally what it is. You go, nothing really bad. Yeah. Like, I brush my teeth and I miss my mouth. And like, okay, you wash your face. Like, nothing bad happened. You're okay. So as you start to do the micro things, and I did micro things for about three months, I just almost every day to every other day, I would try to do something slightly different. And I would easily recommend that. That's how you rewire your brain.
Yeah. And I think, too, Andrew, I mean, because I think, you definitely have to rewire your brain. And then you've said this a couple of times, just you bet on you. And sometimes you just have to bet on you, the person that, quitting is not an option. You're gonna succeed because of what you believe is inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to bet on you to win.
You do, because you win when you bet on you to win. Like, literally, like, nobody else really benefits from you winning. That feeling that you have when you've actually accomplished something, it is something that's so personal to you. And then when you did it, on your own, for the most part, it's you that you get to applaud. It's you that you get to pat yourself on the back and say, "Wow, like, look what I did. Look, this was me." What's the speech from Snoop? I like to thank me. Like, I did it. And it's true. So yeah. And that's a goal for me. That was a big goal, to say, like, I did it. Or like, me and my wife did it. Like, that's a very big goal to say I did it. I bet on myself, and I'm striving. So yeah.
I love that. So there was something else, and I have two more things. And
Sure.
dude, time has really gone by fast.
I know. I was like, wow, yeah.
Yeah. So you said you are not broken. You are not broken. You need to turn up the volume. And you was talking about a radio. And
wow, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about a radio and how we think it's broken, but actually the volume needs to be turned up. So let's talk about that, because I think there are so many people whose volume is turned down.
It turns down over time. Everybody else's volume gets turned up. Yeah, the analogy was from those old alarm clocks, right? The old Casio alarm clocks, right? Like, so you go set the alarm, and then the volume is turned down or whatever, and then you didn't, you overslept, right? The more that you listen to yourself, and the more that you trust, like that. So let's go back to the previous thing. You say, "Okay, I got to do something a little bit different." You start looking for something different. That voice starts getting louder in your head. Well, what else can I do different, right? So you start turning up your own volume the more that you trust yourself, the more that you go, "Okay, I am fine. Everything's good." The more that volume gets turned up. So the concept is that your gut, and I always say this, like, at least this is how it works for me. My brain has a lot of chatter, right? But when my gut talks, it's like one sentence and then it dies. Like, it doesn't repeat itself over and over again, right? So when you had a bad feeling about something, like leave, it's just like the word leave, and it's bold, and then that's it. You're like, "Oh, I got to move," right? But then the analytical part of your brain starts spinning, right? So you got to turn up the volume of your inner voice. And that comes with the practice of listening to it and trusting. And then as you continue to do it, you realize that, wow, like, I can hear it better. And then next thing you know, you're following your gut. And that's what's going to lead you to at least happiness, to greatness, to something better in your life, because you have to turn up the volume of your gut. And because it is talking, but you're over talking it, right? Like a room crowded full of people, it said something, you just didn't hear it because you were spitting all this analytical stuff. You were over analyzing, you were over talking it. Turn up the volume of your gut,
So the first time that happened with you, Andrew, did you hear your gut, or did you act on what your gut told you to do?
That's what it was. I acted on what my gut told me, and everything, and something like worked out. I don't remember the exact incident, but I realized that, like, as I listened to my gut. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was going into the city last night, and into New York, and it was a whole bunch of traffic because it's a holiday weekend. So there's so much traffic, everybody going back into New York. But I had a dinner reservation. So my gut just said, stay in this lane. And I stayed in the lane. Normally, I'm a very aggressive driver. And I just stayed in the lane. And I go, I don't know why I'm just being so calm. But I'm like, my gut's telling me to be calm. Next thing you know, the lane opens up. A bus lane opens up. I get behind a bus and I fly into the city. I shave half an hour off my time. And me and my wife have plenty of time to relax and don't have to stress about parking and all of that. You know, when you just sit there and you go, don't overanalyze it, you start to trust it, and when it speaks, you go, oh, that's it, and you go, that's it, shut up, just follow it, and then then you follow it, then you go right in with ease, right? So yeah.
I love that. I love how you say you have to, you trust it. You trust it. You trust it. Yeah, you have to
Trust
just
it.
trust it.
It's a muscle, it's like anything else. Like you got to use it, and then you start to trust it. So, and I think so much of our lives, we kind of abandon it through work. Somebody else is making the decision. I don't have the authority to do that, or things of that nature. And that's where you start to lose it because you're not making decisions all the time. And the less decisions that you make, the harder it is for that voice to ever speak up and for you to hear it. So yeah.
Wow, I love that. So Andrew, if you could go back in time and change anything in your past, would you do it, and what would it be?
No, you always gotta say no. That's what got me here, right? Obviously, you can think of some things that you're like, that was probably bad, but then I look at the outcome and I go, I'm good now. So no, I wouldn't go back and change it. I also look at, there is no such thing as failure. So I said that early on, right? Those things that maybe I stumbled on, but I got back up, right? And that taught me something, right? Every time I made a mistake, every time I did something that was wrong, quote unquote wrong, I learned from that, and then I was able to grow. And then without those quote unquote mistakes, I never would be in the position that I'm in and where I'm going because it taught me so much. I always think about, what's his name? Thomas Edison, right? I'm from Jersey. So I think he tried like thousands of times to find tungsten, right? And it's like through that process, you learn so much. You got to keep trying over and over and over again. And that those things are not failures, they're not failures. And once you stop viewing it like a failure, then you relieve the pressure. You don't call yourself a failure. That's one of the negative things that you could do. Never call yourself a failure, right? Like, or blame yourself for those things. If it's horrific, you got something, but that's the best way to kind of keep going.
Yeah, because I mean that's the whole premise of the podcast this season is about starting where you are, building using where you are as the foundation for the future you want to build and that you want to create. And I think you just said it very well. Like you have to find the lessons in what could be perceived as failures and find the good in it and find the knowledge and build off of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. I wouldn't change anything about my past. I don't know one thing I would change.
No, I don't even reflect on it like that. And I think that's probably the positive mindset that, there's only so much you should probably dwell on the past and start really focusing on the future because you'll get stuck in the same place if you're looking back, right? So if you look to the future, then you could grow, you could build, you could walk and move, right? So, don't get stuck in the past too much, right? It's done, it's over, accept it, and, move on if you best you can.
So Andrew, you're working on a book and everything soon to be released, right?
Yeah. So I, to your point, very nervous, but it's an awesome accomplishment that I'm proud of. It's called The Second Self. Stop living for somebody else's dream. You're not too old to start your life. Anytime I research millionaires, like from the past and stuff like that, a lot of these people are well into their 40s by the time they actually develop their life. So you're not too old to start something new. So I realized that the second half of my life is something that I am writing, literally and metaphorically, right? So I'm writing the second chapter of my life, and it's going to be about the breakout process. It's not a finished product because I'm not finished, right? I'm not at the top of the mountain, right? But it's all of the things that we're talking about, all the things that you break out, all the things that shifted my viewpoint of life when I realized that I am in control. And those are things that I think it's worth for people to read, because I know that, a lot of self-help books talk in this very, matter of fact kind of way. And I liked the fact that I wrote it personally from I'm stumbling, but I'm still going forward, right? Here are all the hiccups. Here are all the weird things that, made me feel awkward, but I am still progressing forward. And I think that, it could really help some people to, change their life if they're feeling kind of stuck. If you're looking at your life, you find yourself, I read about like a millennial midlife work crisis. A lot of folks go through this. It's been going on for years. And you shouldn't be, do what you want to do, but consuming more, buying more products is only going to give you a temporary fix. The dream, your purpose of what you were built here to put on, on this world and to shine your light is what you need to focus on. So it's just my long process of trying to peel back the old layers, not look in the past, and grow, so really excited about it. Yeah.
So so let me ask you this here question, because I mean you're super positive. We know we know what's at, where you're headed and everything, but you just said you're nervous about it. And I think a lot of times when people hear folks say like, oh yeah, I'm creating my future, they be like, well, why are they nervous if they creating a future? But it happens to everybody. So
I don't know where I'm going. The path laid before, it's like anything else, like if you apply for a job, you're nervous if you're going to get it, right? If you start to, write a book, are they going to like it? Or you create posts on social media, is one of these going to go viral? Anything that you do, you're human, right? You're going to be a little bit nervous. It's okay. And sometimes I'll just say this, I admit it to myself, and it actually calms me down, because if I don't recognize that I'm nervous, then I kind of, I just act nervous longer, right? I go, oh, you're nervous. Okay. Identify.
Yeah. And nervous is I think it's a natural thing. It's a natural thing because, like you said, you never know where it's going to go, who's going to read it, where all the opportunities that can come from it. But the good thing about that you don't do is you don't allow being nervous to stop you from doing it.
That is exactly it. And that is the point of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That nervous feeling is going to come up, and I've been here before, and then that means I keep going, right? That is not a reason to stop. That is a normal process. You are risking, you are taking a chance, you're betting on yourself. You can, quote unquote, it may not turn out exactly the way you thought it would, but you are nervous, and it's okay. You keep moving.
Yeah, and it may not turn out how you thought it was, but at least it turned out some way, because it wouldn't have turned out anyway if you didn't do it. Yeah, turned out some
exactly.
Way. So what's next for you, Andrew? I know you got a book, but what else?
What's next to me? What else is next is my wife does have a company. She's trying to get out of corporate, so she's doing very well on social media. So we're starting a company. It is the corporate inmate, and so we're gonna work on that. So that's also really fun to work with my wife on something that we both believe in. So that's getting up and running. So we have some merchandise. We're working on a course right now. So we literally just about an hour ago got done working on a course that we're going to start to promote. So that's the kind of things that you got to keep something in the hopper. You always got to look for something new. Because it keeps you creative, and that's the whole get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I believe in my wife very much, and I believe that she's going to create something, and I can't wait to see where our world goes. So
I love that. That. So everybody, please go out, follow Andrew. His information is at the bottom of the screen. He's on Instagram, TikTok, and on Threads. All the quiet swagger. And what you saw tonight is what you get on his page. He gives some fashion tips too, so that is something else you're gonna get. He does have some swag, so he got some swag. It ain't quiet though.
That's how I got into it. I started something comfortable. I bought a bunch of clothes. I liked it. I go, okay, I don't have to talk on camera. I get to just did it. But then now I talk. So start where you're comfortable, and then you can branch out. Like literally to your point, John. You start someplace and then you don't know where it's going to go. I may never do clothes again, you know, as I continue to progress, but it was what I started with. So you pivot, it's okay.
Yeah, and I love, but that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of being open to what the future holds. You may start here, and then you evolve into something else, and you may not do the thing you that started out with anymore. But you're constantly growing, and you're constantly pivoting and
Yes.
experiencing new things. And I think that's what a lot of us we miss out on. We want everything. We want to line out the dots. We want everything to connect, and sometimes life is not always connecting the dots.
It's not. And sometimes it's fun, you know, pivoting. Sometimes it's like, wow, like I didn't know. And I wouldn't have known if I didn't start. Right. So I never would have got to talking if I didn't start not talking on the camera. So, you know, you have to then take that step, you know, so many times you got to change. You know, we talked about it. You got to do physical things different in your life, right? You won't know what's out there unless you leave your house and go a different place that you haven't been before, you know? So that's where the joy is. That's where the excitement is.
Andrew, I mean, this hour like went by really fast. I'm gonna have to get you back on here, man, because this was like
yeah, this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I hope
this was a lot of fun, man. Oh my God. But guys, I'm telling you, please go out and follow Andrew on all of those platforms because like I said, what you saw here tonight is what he puts on his page. He is super inspiring, and I'm glad to be connected with him. And for real, Andrew, I'm gonna get you back on here, man. Because
this was absolutely fun, man. This is absolutely one, and I really appreciate you having me on here. It's a great platform. So positive stuff out there in the world. Just we got to keep promoting positive stuff. So.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, that's a wrap. And we will see you guys next Monday. Thomas Jackson is my guest next Monday. So 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, same day. And we'll see you guys next Monday. And again, thank you, Andrew, for coming on, man.
Thank you, John. Appreciate everybody. Okay.
Yes, sir. Peace.
Peace. Peace.
Yeah. Real life stories and transparent conversations, hustle and grind, love and relationships with all the tools for living your best life. It's the Dope As Do Podcast. The Dope As Do Podcast.